All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to talk about Jalen Hurts winning Super Bowl MVP and break down his performance yesterday. And he was solid, and you could tell early on that he was locked in. He hits AJ Brown on that 4th and 2 or 4th and 3 down the sideline. Now it got called back for offensive PI, which is maybe a little bit of a ticky tacky call, but I think it still ultimately was the right call. And then he did bounce back after the interception because there was that interception early on. It was picked off by Brian Cook, but it didn't matter. He still put together a good game, a good performance. He hits Devontae Smith, which was the dagger. I mean, the Fox broadcast has a job to do. They never guaranteed that, yeah, the Eagles won this game. Because, you still got to say, hey, the Chiefs, you never know. But I was just sitting there going, guys, come on now. The game's over. The game is over. There is no chance that the Chiefs are coming back. They have zero chance. But, I mean, was Jalen Hurts historically great last night? No, but he didn't have to be. And this was good for him because I talked about this last week. I think he's one of the more highly criticized quarterbacks or scrutinized quarterbacks in the NFL because it's just, he has those games where he doesn't throw for a ton of yards and, you know, people call him maybe a handoff merchant because, you're just handing the ball off to Saquon and, Saquon has these huge games. But like I said last week, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If the running game's working, keep handing it off. And guess what? Saquon is not the reason that the Eagles won this game last night. Saquon was really a non-factor. Now, I don't want to put a damper on this, but I do think that the defense as a whole should have got Super Bowl MVP. Because I said at one point, I thought Cooper DeJean should have got it. Then, Josh Sweat had a couple of sacks. Milton Williams had a couple of sacks in this game as well. And I think he had the forced fumble late in the game. I just want to go to the box score really quick. So you look at the Eagles' defense. So yeah, Milton Williams had 2 sacks. And he had the forced fumble. Cooper DeJean had the pick 6, and then you also had Josh Sweat as well. I don't know why I can't find him on here. Oh, here he is. 2.5 sacks he had. The Eagles' defense as a whole had 6 sacks, 2 interceptions, 1 forced fumble, and one of the interceptions was a pick 6. Now, Jalen Hurts on the night, 17 of 22, 221 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. And the interception was early on. But Hurts was solid. He also did have 72 yards on the ground. He still ended up being the leading rusher in the Super Bowl for the Eagles. Saquon only had 57 yards on the ground. They gave the ball to him 25 times. But yeah, Hurts had 72 yards on the ground in the rushing touchdown. It was the tush-push touchdown early on. So I'm not saying that I'm outraged by it, but I do think that the Eagles defense probably deserved it more. But you're not going to give it to the whole defense. You got to give it to somebody. And, you could say, hey, give it to Milton Williams. Give it to Cooper DeJean. Give it to Josh Sweat. But I get it. Not only is the MVP a quarterback award, but the Super Bowl MVP is also a quarterback award. Depending on, what year we're talking here. Because Cooper Kupp was the last player, the last non-quarterback to win Super Bowl MVP. And I remember I went over that last year, and I said it was Julian Edelman, but I forgot about Kupp. I was thinking Stafford won it, but no, Kupp ended up winning that. But yeah, this is usually a quarterback award. And when the Seahawks and the Broncos won it, the no-fly zone and Legion of Boom, Malcolm Smith won that award for the Seahawks because he had the pick 6 off of Peyton Manning. And then Von Miller, of course, won the Super Bowl MVP for Super Bowl 50. And I mean, he had an unbelievable performance too. He had the strip sack of Cam Newton. He had 2 of them. The 2 fumbles. I don't think the second one was a sack, but he knocked the ball out of Cam Newton's hands. But Von Miller was a one-man wrecking crew in that Super Bowl. But yeah, I think you could have given it to a defensive player. But yeah, Jalen Hurts was solid. He was locked in for this game, and that's 2 Super Bowls now against the Chiefs where he has come up big. And there's a bigger conversation to be had about him where does he rank now amongst the top quarterbacks in the league? And my friend and I were talking about this the night before the Super Bowl. Like, yeah, what happens if the Eagles win this Super Bowl? Where do we rank Hurts? And I did bring up the fact that, all right, well, if Hurts has a good game, you know, you got to put him, in the top five, right? Well, actually, I also talked about, well, if he has a bad game, well, we're not going to have any kind of conversation. But he's got to contribute to this victory, and he did do that. But was he, like, spectacular? Was he, historically great? Like I said, no. But like I said in the open, he didn't have to be. He didn't have to be. The Eagles' defense put them in great field position. Well, the pick six, they didn't have to do anything. But then the Zach Bond interception that led to an A.J. Brown touchdown. And then, of course, you had the fumble later in the game as well. But, the Eagles, they went for the kill shot. Hurts connected with Devontae Smith. Hurts was efficient. If it's not going to be the defense, yeah, you give it to the quarterback. The quarterback played well. It's not like Jimmy Garoppolo where, in that NFC Championship game when Garoppolo, threw like what? Completed 3 passes in the game? No. Hurts contributed to this game a lot more. And, they had to win it through the air. Because the Chiefs, they held down Saquon Barkley. And I figured that Jalen Hurts was going to have a good game here. If the Eagles were to win, Jalen Hurts is going to have to make plays. And Jalen Hurts did make plays in this game. Not just with his legs, but with his arm too. Now, the Eagles were kind of comfortable. They were on cruise control pretty much this whole game because, the Chiefs just could not move the ball. And Mahomes threw 2 picks that helped him out. But Jalen Hurts still played a good game. And for him, for the Eagles to bounce back after what happened last year, and then you lose the Super Bowl the year before that, I mean, this is going to be a very good team for a long time if they can keep this core together. Now, Brandon Graham's probably going to retire, but you still got these young players on the defensive line, in the secondary. And you got A.J. Brown, you got Devontae Smith, you got Saquon, you have this offensive line. I mean, Kellen Moore's going to leave, but I would imagine, everybody else is going to stay, right? The Eagles can continue to win. Now, it's tough to repeat. It's tough to get to 3 straight Super Bowls. The Patriots did it. The Chiefs did it. But, you look at the landscape of the NFC. I mean, the Eagles are going to be right there if they keep this group together. But back to what I was saying about Hurts. It's tough right now because I still think Josh Allen's a better quarterback. I still think Lamar Jackson's a better quarterback. I mean, I could argue Joe Burrow's a better quarterback. But here's the thing. We also measure quarterbacks on what they do in the big games. And Jalen Hurts has been to 2 Super Bowls. Joe Burrow's been to 1. Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson have not been to a Super Bowl yet. Jalen Hurts has a Super Bowl now. And he knocked off Patrick Mahomes. And he is now the 3rd guy to knock off Mahomes in the playoffs. He joins an elite class. Tom Brady, Joe Burrow, and now Jalen Hurts. And now Jalen Hurts has a Super Bowl. Tom Brady, when he beat Mahomes in the Super Bowl. And he beat Mahomes in the AFC Championship game and then went on to win the Super Bowl. Joe Burrow beat him, and Joe Burrow ended up losing in his Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts won. Now, that game was an overall team win. But Jalen Hurts contributed to that win. He did. When the Eagles got turnovers, the offense turned it into points. And that is what we saw in the championship game against the Commanders. The Eagles were not going to be the team where, you get the turnover and you don't turn it into anything. They made the Chiefs pay. And Jalen Hurts made them pay. And yeah, I mean, put respect on his name now. Now, I think I still had him as a top 10 quarterback, but, I mean, you look at his overall body of work from the regular season. I mean, did he have a great year? I know, I mean, numbers wise, no. But you know what? He's part of a team that won 14 games. And the other thing about being a quarterback is, yeah, you're not putting up all these great stats, but also you manage the game right and you don't turn the ball over. And maybe early on in the season it was a bit of a problem with some of the games that they lost. But the Eagles went on this streak, and their only loss during that was against the Commanders in a game where Jalen Hurts got hurt. And then you get into the playoffs, and your first turnover of the playoffs is in the Super Bowl. But they ended up winning the turnover battle, the Eagles. I mean, it was very impressive what they were able to do. And they played. I mean, I'm not going to say I sat there and watched every Eagles game this year, but that was probably the best game they played. You could say, I mean, the championship game with the turnovers, but I think just overall they played. I mean, it wasn't a flawless game because, yeah, they turned the ball over once, but you got to say, in the biggest game, they were prepared for this game. They were motivated to win this game. And they got it done. And Jalen Hurts got it done. So, props to him to get this done. And yeah, I mean, you can't really disrespect him today. You could try to spin it however you want, but at the end of the day, he's a Super Bowl champion. And was he the sole reason that the Eagles won this game? No. Like I said, the Eagles' defense, I think, is the real reason why they won the game. But Jalen Hurts had a good game. And Jalen Hurts also put the exclamation point on this game. He put his stamp on this game because they made sure to slam that door shut and make sure that, yeah, you're not coming back, Chiefs. It's not happening this year. So, yeah, Jalen Hurts is a Super Bowl MVP. And let's see how he follows it up next year. So, before we go to break, I just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. Makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So, when we come back from our next break, we will talk about the Chiefs now. Chiefs side of things. Where do they go from here after this loss? So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.